Technology is great, but unless technology can be embedded into the workflow and operation, it doesn't deliver returns. AI is like a human, is like a machine which needs to get trained on good context and good data. And most enterprises and companies do not have that clean data. So the smart platform, which we've built as part of our payments business, today it allows for payment integrity solutions to be set up 65 to 80% faster. I think with AI and with data and the advancement in data management, all of that can be done under one hood, right? So today, whether it's credit card fraud, whether it's account fraud, banks are using AI to identify it at source quicker, stop, and then also communicate, right? And overall, that leads to lower losses, but also better experience. AI is not magic, but AI, when used within the right transformation context, is magical.
Healthcare today is messy, rising costs, fragmented systems, and billions lost to errors. But what if we could stop those errors before they even happen? Hi, I am your host Sonam Chawla and welcome to the Economic Times podcast. Welcome Gaurav, and we'll break down what really takes to move from legacy systems to real-time AI engine and how risk across different industries, healthcare, insurance, and whatnot coming alive, being redefined, and whether this AI wave is finally living up to the hype. So that's what the conversation is going to turn around, and things would be changing another few minutes as per the knowledge our audience has. And thank you so much for joining today, Gaurav. Let's start from a brief of, as we discussed, it's been rather 20 years, you being at EXL. I'm sure you've seen an evolution on things, and when we say the game changer,
right,
in the past few, rather 3 to 4 years, I guess, things have been, the tangents have changed and things have been drastically on a different level and a different move. So I think it is a parabolic thing happening. So let's discuss a bit about how was your experience all through and how it has been for you with EXL and the systems and the things evolving and now the AI coming in.
No, absolutely. So first of all, Sonam, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to have this discussion. And the topic is fantastic, right? It's top of mind for everybody. So in terms of my background, so I joined EXL 20 years back. I started off in our data and analytics business.
Okay.
And I like to joke that I started off at a time when neither data nor analytics were cool.
I'm sure.
Today they are the rage. But that gave me a very solid foundation to understand how companies and enterprises make decisions and how better data and better insights could actually help you design better products and services for your customers. So that was my first stint.
Okay.
I've also done a role as chief of staff to our CEO.
Okay.
So that gave me a bird's eye view of now not how data and analytics works, but how a public company gets run. And that was fantastic to understand how you actually run a public company. Then I've done a role in operations because, as you will hear when I talk about it, technology is great, but unless technology can be embedded into the workflow and operation, it doesn't deliver returns, right? So my stint at operations helped me connect the dots between data, analytics, and operations. And then 6 years back, we actually decided, and it was to EXL's credit that they thought ahead of the curve. We said, look, we have to invest in AI, and we have to invest in AI products. So I set up that practice. Today, that's a fundamentally fast-growing practice. In fact, we've done 10 patents for our AI products and solutions in 2025. And then as we went on that journey, clearly AI boomed, R&D was important. And then over the last 3 years, it's clear that engineering is the last mile to actually connect AI to your data, to your customers and deliver value. So engineering is the last aspect which I picked up. So that's been my journey.
Sure.
It's actually been the journey of EXL. And I'm really proud of what we've done and what we've achieved.
So good to hear that. So let's take the conversation on a different level where we want to understand what makes AI movement. As you said, things have been really attractive, I would say. If we talk about just one word, it's fascinating rather.
Yeah.
So AI movement genuinely is different, and where do you see the risk of it being overhyped again? Let's take things to that level.
Yes, absolutely. So I think let me just quickly maybe just highlight three or four of the big AI moments or let's say announcements that we've seen, right? So we had the entire part about OpenClaw, right?
Yeah.
I was at the GTC conference, the NVIDIA GTC, and Jensen Wong's point was that that OpenClaw is the next best thing to Linux and the design of the operating system. So he said it's a fundamental shift. Two, if you think about it, some of the new models that have come out, these models have actually been trained and developed by AI. So AI is actually building AI, right? So
Yeah.
that's also becoming real. And the third is, we heard of Moldbook, which is an AI social media, right? So AI agents are talking to each other completely differently, not with humans. And you can almost see a parallel universe where, AI plays almost like an equal role with humans, right? So this is the technology advancing. So that's one aspect. But I think to your question, there's a second aspect that while this is the boom and everybody in technology talks about these three aspects, if you think about enterprises and you talk to a healthcare company, a payer, an insurance company, they are still struggling to see the ROI from
Absolutely.
AI, right? So there is this dichotomous view in the world, right? There's on one side people who are gung-ho, and on the other side people who are struggling to say, look, it looks promising, but how do I make sense of it? And to me, there are three aspects of that, of that struggle. One is AI is like a human, is like a machine which needs to get trained on good context and good data. And most enterprises and companies do not have that clean data, right? So AI trained on bad data makes bad decisions, right? So that's one. Two is, if you really think about AI, if you just plug AI into an existing process, you will get some efficiencies. You will get, for example, if you think about co-pilots. Co-pilots have been great. They have helped us all do our jobs better. But have they fundamentally changed our outcomes? No. They probably made us 20% more productive, have information, but they've not changed outcomes. So you fundamentally think about redesigning the workflow, right? Redesigning how claims get done, how you underwrite. I talk about some of the things in healthcare. So that redesign is a second aspect which people don't do. So if you don't redesign, technology doesn't deliver the value. So business and technology transformation has to go together, right? Not different. And the third is adoption and the human aspect of it, right? And that's really important because if the human doesn't trust AI, and I want to focus on trust, humans over the history have always done things, worked with things that they trust. AI has not got that trust. You can give a fantastic tool. If the human being doesn't use it, I'll give you an example. In some of our customer service work, we have an agent assist. The agent assist actually tells the human what's the right next best action, what's the right offer. But if the human doesn't take that and talk to the customer in the same lens, it doesn't matter what you offer. And if you ask our agents, they say, Gaurav, I'm not sure it's correct. Yeah. I don't think it has the context. And these are genuine problems, right? So I think it's data, it's business and tech transformation being together, and it's the human trust. I think these three elements are still to be done.
Truly said, Gaurav. With that only, my second question comes in, that as you said about adoption, we're discussing about the challenge, the real challenge. The beyond the technology itself, adoption is a real challenge across, I think, every industry. So how do you drive meaningful change management to ensure AI is actually, gets you at use at scale and to be used everywhere? So as a leader or as being someone into it.
Right.
So how do you make that?
Yeah. So look, I would say, first of all, it's not a solved problem, but I can just talk to you about three or four things that we are doing.
Sure.
So number one, I think, as I said, you have to first create trust in AI. So as you deploy these or as you build these AI systems, it's very important to involve the user upfront in the design. Too often I've seen technology teams build something and then involve the user in the final stage of testing and adoption. That doesn't work. If you involve them upfront in the design, they understand the nuances, the pros, the cons, where it can go wrong. There's a much greater chance that they will adopt it. So involve the user upfront in your design.
So when you say upfront, do I understand it correctly when I say that, okay, upfront means right at the kickoff of the moment?
Yes,
or
absolutely.
a little later when things that you have created something and then that needs to be tested.
Yeah, actually, you're absolutely right, Sonam. It's upfront when you say, okay, what is the business case for deploying AI? You typically say, this is my return. There is so much efficiency. There is, better customer outcomes. There is better product relevance. So defining that has to be done with the user. Too often, we do it and then we give the user that these are the benefits that we need. And the user is like, I'm not signed up for that, right? This is not something that.
Yeah.
So you start with scoping. When you are actually developing the product itself, we have a daily scrum. Engineers have daily scrums. We found it very useful to have our business SMEs actually part of that scrum.
Okay.
So that they understand how you build the technology, the gaps, how we are working through. Thirdly, we say start testing with the users much ahead of user acceptance testing. So typical software has been, let's build, let's do system testing, then user testing. User testing actually should start in an iterative, agile manner upfront in the build itself, right? Because one of the other big things about AI is it's a learning system. Today, in most of our deployments, if AI is at 70% accuracy on day 1, it's at 80% on day 30, and it's at 95% on day 60. It will not be 95% on day 1. So it is an iterative process. Absolutely. And that has to be defined with the user upfront. So I think that's smart. The second big thing that we've done is build trust in AI with data. So as I said, on day 1, whatever AI accuracies, publish it upfront, right? Don't try to mask it. Don't try to make it look good or bad. Publish the data to say, look, this is what AI is doing. It's right on 40%. It's incorrect on 60%. This is our roadmap today, right? So build the trust in the user, because ultimately the AI will hallucinate 5 to 7% of the time and the user will be required. But it is okay for 93%, and that should be straight through automated processing. Too often, Sonam, what we've seen is when we deploy AI, it is wrong 1 out of 50 times. But the user comes and tells me, Gaurav, it's wrong 1 of the 50. I don't know which of the 50, so I will check all 50. So if you check all 50, then the benefits of AI are gone, right? So there has to be the trust that, okay, this is why 49 have to be straight through.
Yeah.
And that is not, that requires data, it requires transparency, and it requires trust. So I think that's second. And the third most important element is that we have to not make it an AI versus human and an issue of the job. As long as you say, look, the AI is coming to take up your job, and if that's the kind of inclination we give, then you're going to be in trouble. So upfront, I think there are enough new roles that are getting created. So if you think about even something like underwriting in insurance, right? 80% of underwriters' effort is in data collection, is in cleaning the data, in understanding what is the risk and the submission. That can all be done by AI. The 20% which they used to pass to you make a judgment call on whether to write or underwrite the risk, that actually they have more time for. They have more time to negotiate with the client. They have more time to understand the client's business, build a relationship. All things that humans are great at, right? What are we great at? We are great at judgment. We are great at relationship. And I think it's important to tell our people that use the time that AI frees up to do more of that. And that's a push on new KPIs.
Yes.
That's a push on what's your new set of incentives. Because incentives cannot be on transaction processing anymore. Incentives have to be on outcomes. And I think that's the human shift of outcomes, which makes us feel as though, look, we're going to go to higher plane. It's not that the AI is going to take away our job. So I think these are three things from our implementation that we've learned.
Great, great. So, I mean, it is such knowledgeable facts you've shared with the audience. Just one thing while you were telling me about the adoption and everything, when it comes to user testing, as you mentioned, so I think the cohorts would also be a very important, aspect of whatever testing we are doing every day. So one stage clear, second stage again, there would be something. Then your user cohort changes altogether, I guess.
Yeah.
So when you say 1 out of 50, so does that correlate to this particular thought of, every time, the developments are happening.
Yeah.
One thing done, tested, second level of test, and then the cohort changes.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important, as you correctly said, that, when we involve users in the testing, we involve a very broad section of users, right? Because, to your point, different users interact with AI at different points, right? So you are right. So if you think about claims, right? If you think about claims, and there was a certain set of questions you had. Now, claims has a very wide range of stakeholders involved in it, right? There is obviously the customer who logs the claim. So there's someone who logs the claim. That claim goes to an engineer, right, who looks at the claim, or to a nurse or someone practitioners who looks at the claim. Then it comes to almost like a person who does finance and payments to look at, look, can I pay out this claim? Is it as per policy? And or is it overpaying, underpaying? And then potentially once a claim gets paid out and somebody complains, there's a lawyer involved. So there's an engineer, there's a lawyer, there's a finance person, there's an operations, everybody's involved in the claim.
Yes.
So if I build a claims.AI, I have to get, these people are looking at a claim from a different angle.
Exactly.
So in fact, upfront when we design the product, you have to bring all four stakeholders because each of them looks at it from a different angle. And if you solve for two and don't solve for the other two,
that's what
when
you said so.
And actually, the macro point to your question is, Sonam, this is the most cross-functional team I've ever seen set up. And I've spent 20 years, as you said, in a company. There are lawyers, there are finance people, there are operations people, there are engineers, there are AI R&D people, and there are people, who understand the subject. Everybody together in a pod from day one till when it's done. This kind of a cross-functional pod, I have not seen anywhere. And in fact, this is one of the struggles because how do companies bring these people together, right? Typically, tech has been engineers. Payments and commercials has been finance, right? And if something goes wrong from a contract standpoint, it's been legal. But they've always worked in silo. So AI is actually, its superpower is coordination.
Absolutely.
And, that requires a different mindset.
Interesting, yeah. So that's what we wanted to shed some light on how, the entire ecosystem works on right now.
Yeah.
So coming to EXL again, EXL claims multi-billion-dollar savings through a platform-led strategy. So for a payer evaluating smart platform suite,
right,
what does the business case actually look like? While you've shared a lot, I would say, but then let's focus on the product itself.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So the smart platform, which we've built as part of our payments business in healthcare, at the headline level, Sona, today it allows for payment integrity solutions to be set up 65 to 80% faster than in the past, right? So what that means is for a payer, right, their ability to look at claims overpayments, talk to the provider, solve for it and get some of the leakage back, everything can be done at 65 to 80% faster, right, in terms of speed. That's one thing. Secondly, our accuracy in actually identifying the overpayments, right, has gone up 5x, right? So what that means is that if you accurately identify, then the number of difficult conversations with a provider reduce, right? That's a second. And the third thing is the kind of patient outcomes we can drive, because in the end, all of this causes a bad patient outcome, right? Especially a patient who's gone through a procedure, but their payments are getting stuck or there's a difference. So there is better outcome that we've delivered, right? So that's the headline of what something like Smart Platform can do. The reason it's able to do this, Sonam, is threefold. One is data. So in the past, we would have used typical claims data, claims transactional data. So what was part of the claim, what was told, and you would make decisions. Today in the Smart Platform, we can actually leverage unstructured data. So clinical data. What has been your health? What has been your health history? What has been past prescriptions you have taken, right? All of that unstructured data was never part of the decision making. Today in our Smart Platform, we have unstructured data. We have structured claims data. We have personal health data, which is EMR data, and we have all of this together so that you can make a decision. In the past, a payer would have 15 systems, and it's hard to pick data from 15 and to make it into something meaningful. Today, we have a smart platform data layer, which does all that, right? So irrespective of what is the current legacy infrastructure of a payer, we create a data layer which does all of this in a very accelerated manner. So I think that's one. The second thing is, I think the ability for us to make decisions on whether this is a claim, whether it's an overpayment, we have many more machine learning models. A model used to take us 6 months to build. Today with AI, the model takes us 6 weeks. So what that means is we, instead of having 40 models to detect, today we have 400.
Okay.
Right? So 400 means we make better decisions.
Absolutely.
We have more nuanced models, and we get better outcomes. So I think our data science, machine learning has gotten turbocharged. So I think that's two. And the third is that we've also built in a lot better in terms of the communication. So communication with the provider, handling objections with data, with transparency, giving our auditors co-pilots, assistants to make them make better decisions,
down
interact with. That's become. So there has been a major set of tooling on productivity assist, auditor assist, which has delivered benefit. So these are the three reasons that we get things done much faster, more accurately, and to better.
I think that's the holistic handling you've done
Yeah.
through this system.
Absolutely.
So, Gaurav, how, while we have talked about EXL and the systems doing the things for the clients, so how much do you think, how quickly can a client move from a legacy fragmented systems to a unified model or high velocity AI engine without disrupting the, already existing live claims operation, which is already that exists?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you think about an enterprise stack, right? Typically, there is infrastructure, there is data, there is models, and then there are workflows, right? Or there are processes.
Yeah.
This is the 4-layer stack in most enterprises. What AI does is, and what has been the problem is, in that data layer, you've typically had multiple systems of record, as you correctly said, multiple legacy systems. And the data in that has been unclean, is not consistent, and so the models have always struggled to make insights out of the data. What we've built something called EXL data.ai.
Okay.
So what data.ai does is it sits on top of that set of legacy systems. You can have 2, you can have 10, you can have 15. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
EXL data.ai plugs into those systems,
All right.
extracts the data, cleans the data, understands the lineage, the explainability of data, and stores it as data graphs. Right?
Get it.
So all we have to do is basically plug in data.ai into your system ecosystem, so to speak. Right? You can have 2, 10, whatever, and it will create a clean data layer. And that clean data layer, once created, then your layers above, which is the model and the workflow, they just work much more seamlessly. They are more precision, highly accurate, and they deliver better outcomes. So data.ai, which does automated migration, cleaning, quality, and governance of data, is actually the unlock. And that unlocks value up the stack.
Amazing. So that's interesting, rather. Let's dive more into the suite itself. It's built around stopping payment errors before the check is cut. So what does that architectural shift from post-payment auditing to real-time anomaly detection actually require what does that require under one roof, under the hood in terms of data, as you mentioned, AI models and cloud infrastructure? What does it require?
Yeah. No, I think, look, it's a fundamental shift, right? Because what we used to do was post payment. So it used to be done in batch. It could be done, over a period of time. And it was always looking back. So it was a reactive system that we'd built. And reactive systems have other challenges. When we went to, almost the prepayment, then that has very different dynamics. You have to actually do real-time assessment. You have to stop the payment. Now, if you stop the payment, the friction with the hospital or the provider is much higher, because in one case they have got the payment and you're trying to recover amounts. That's not easy, but okay, it's here you're actually stopping the payment because you're saying, look, it's potentially you have done something, an incorrect coding, or you have done something incorrect with the claim, and that's a big frictionful process. You better have very clear reasons why you have stopped payment, because that hits at the heart of any business.
It's sensitive. Anything
Absolutely.
over there is sensitive
Absolutely.
enough. Yeah.
So you have to work with real-time data. You have to make decisions quickly. Once you make the decisions, you have to have a very clear, quick communication, right, with the provider on
Right there.
or know why you did it, right? And the third thing is, in case there are errors or there are things that you have done wrong, your models have to learn very quickly because you cannot do the same mistake, in the subsequent day. Otherwise, you will just lose the relationship and you lose all trust in the system, right? So your feedback loop has to be instant. So under this kind of a scenario, our infrastructure, we've had to move everything to the cloud, right? Simply because we need the scalability, elasticity, and the ability to go, increase capacity, lower capacity, install services in a much quicker manner. So one is we've moved all our infrastructure to the cloud, in fact, to Microsoft Azure. All of our models have had to become much more real-time machine learning models. They cannot run over 24 hours. They cannot run over a period of time and then give us an output. They need to run within 2 minutes, right? Because that's the time between when a submission comes in and a payment goes out. So they have a almost 2 minute window to run and to spit out an outcome, which is, either stop it or pay it. So we've put all our machine learning infrastructure in a real-time, high velocity. So we use some of the NVIDIA tools, quick inferencing. You would have heard about fast inferencing, instant inferencing.
Yeah.
So we have done a lot of that, engineering into our models. And the third is once a decision has been made by the model, we have an omni-channel communication with the provider, right? So we send them an email, there is an SMS, there's a phone call. And the person who's making that has all the data, has all the information about why the model said what it is on their fingertips. So we also have an auditor assist, which basically puts up a summary of why we decline and what's the reason, so that the conversation can be factual versus, something which allows trust. So we built an omni-channel communication suite as well. So I think these are the three big under the hood pivots that we had to make.
That's so informating, rather a great knowledge to what I think we just know the tip of the iceberg when we talk about the AI systems. And this conversation obviously takes the things to the next level. So as you mentioned we talked about the value-based care is accelerating, but accuracy risk rather, that remains one of the hardest problems as we talked about. So how does EXL's approach combining claims data, some of you just mentioned CMS data and EMR data, give payers a materially, better view of population risk than what they had before? Just shed some light on that.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing there, and I alluded to it a little bit, Sonam, is the breaking of the silos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So typically what's happened is it's always been, okay, why don't you look at overpayments, right? There is someone else who's going to look at, whether the care that I provided was effective. Right? There is someone else who's looking at, okay, is the patient actually following that entire set of instruction sequences and checking in with them in terms of how they are progressing. So these were all done in very different parts of the system, right? In the healthcare system. I think with AI and with data and the advancement in data management, all of that can be done under one hood.
Absolutely.
And the big benefit of that is that the patient gets benefit, right? Because then the kind of care given to a patient is personalized, is based on their history. It's not based on what happened at that episodal point, but it's also that, okay, they've had similar kinds of episodes, bouts of whatever illness, and hence the treatment is much more, I would say, based on data and based on their history versus at that point of time. Two is once they get treated, there's an aftercare part. So we can also say, for example, patients that go through this procedure, these are the post-procedure issues that they will get typically after a month, after 3 months. So when we give that information, we allow the providers to check in with the patients to say, okay, are you facing some of those symptoms versus something happening and the patient getting readmitted, right? Because that ultimately is the worst outcome. Outcome for the patient, worst outcome for the providers because they have capacity, and then obviously for the insurance company because we have to go through the same process. So preventive care is any day better, and today with a lot of the data and insights that the smart platform have, we can do that. The good part about if you have all of this data, then this also allows the payers to do risk-adjusted pricing. So if you have more data about Sonam, my chances of giving her a health policy at a better rate is better, right?
Yes,
the
absolutely.
less I know about you, the more general a policy price I'll quote, and the more it will not be valuable to you. Right? It'll either be too high, it'll actually be too high most of the time, right? So that entire risk-based adjustments and end-to-end preventive care. These are two aspects of the system that we are enabling, which we feel are big ticket items, big unlocks in the US healthcare industry.
Great. So, Gaurav, we've talked much about healthcare.
Yeah.
A brief or a bit about some more industries, maybe one or two,
Right.
when it comes to the enablement from EXL. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. So let me take two, which we are very
Yeah.
well,
The top two, maybe.
top two. So the first is banking. It's a
Nice.
industry that all of us understand. We all interact with. To me, what I'm seeing with banks is there are three big unlocks that they're doing with AI. One is, while AI is also driving some fraudulent behavior, but AI and a lot of the things I talked about, right? Real time data, more and nuanced machine learning models, and the ability to take actions quickly also apply to fraud, right? So today, whether it's credit card fraud, whether it's account fraud, banks are using AI to identify it at source quicker, stop, and then also communicate, right? And overall, that leads to lower losses, but also better experience. So I think fraud is one major this thing.
And that is, I think, one of the biggest use cases
100%.
in the
100%.
across every industry. Yeah.
So we are doing a lot of that. The second very interesting is, we've all had this grouse with banks that you have so much of our data, you know where we spend,
Yeah.
and yet your offers are very generic, right? You will be offering me a home loan. When I just bought a house, I'm like, why do I need a home loan? I bought a house. Why do you give me same? So what they have done is there's a lot of information again in unstructured form in banks, right? So when you call their contact centers, it's put into some notes, and that notes goes into a black hole which is never used.
Very true.
So what I've seen banks do is take all the millions of customer transcripts, contact center calls,
Yeah.
and say, okay, looking at all the calls that Sonam has made over the last 5 years, this is the persona that
Okay.
Sonam has,
All right.
and this is the kind of offers and cross sell that we can offer Sonam. Not to mention, this is the kind of servicing Sonam likes. So Sonam likes to be contacted via SMS versus WhatsApp. Sonam typically before Diwali would like to be contacted with an offer, right? And there are other things.
The
for example,
behavioral patterns.
behavioral.
Yes.
And for example, Sonam just opened, this thing for a small child, an account. That means she has a kid. That means that's the kind of offers, she will like. So the personalization is becoming very doable.
Yes.
And we have seen banks using unstructured data, behavioral data, and data in other parts of the bank to make that personalization possible. So I think that's
That's
second.
amazing. I mean, and this is totally a different tangent to what we thought.
Yeah.
Yes, the banking.
Banking, yeah. And banking, we think of it as only payments, but actually it's a retail company, right?
Exactly. So true.
It should
to
be
say.
compared to Amazon. Right? And they should,
Yes, so true. And
Amazon
things
was-
have changed. I mean,
Yeah.
for the past, I would say, few months also, every month, I think the new developments happen, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
So, personas and all.
And the third big area for banks is collections. So,
Yeah.
collections, when you don't pay or you have a hardship, the conversation has always been very frictionful, right? Collections is like a bad word. It's like, okay, I get a call from a collections agency or a bank, that means I'm in
So
trouble.
negative.
It's a negative.
Negative.
And that erodes brand value in our mind. We built a solution called Paymenter, which meets you at your journey. So if you are facing a hardship, it will give you payment assistance. If you're just forgetting to pay because, let's say, the channel in which your bill comes is not something you look at, then it will actually change the channel, right? It will give you a nudge. So that's the way that we are actually making, again, even collections much more data personalized, so that it becomes something that is not a frictionful process, but something that actually helps you change behavior. So these are three big areas that I've seen banks. I just quickly end by saying in insurance, right?
Yeah.
Which is similar to health, is that again, claims is a big area. Underwriting is the other one, right? So today, insurance uses again lots of documentation. They will ask for lots of documentation. They'll do it. Today, that entire underwriting from 5 days, we are able to underwrite in 5 hours.
Okay.
Because
Such a big change.
a big change, and we are able to underwrite risks better because our models are better. We have access to unstructured data, and our ability to almost negotiate with the customer is much higher. So these are the big benefits I'm seeing.
So I think that is such a meaningful conversation we are having, and I would wrap this conversation with one last message from you to the people out there, to the audience rather, on things we have talked about technically, what is going behind. So I one message to people, or rather one information to people across industries: AI is disrupting things, it is developing things, it is evolving. So something which you want to put across, that okay, things are on a different level. So
Yeah.
to them.
No, I just say that AI is not a technology tool or a tool for technology transformation. It's as much a tool or an aid to business transformation. And I think I would urge everybody to think about how they want to transform their business first. That's question one. And then the question two is, what can AI do to enable that? And trust me, AI can do most of that. But if the thinking around business transformation is not step one, then what will happen is AI will remain a tool to drive efficiency, productivity, and that will not live up to its promise, right? And as I tell my daughter, AI is not magic, because many people think it is.
Exactly.
But AI, when used within the right transformation context, is magical.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for your time, and thank you all for watching us today. It has been a pleasure hosting you to understand behind EXL, and rather the whole ecosystem, not only EXL, with so much of experience and so much of the evolution you've seen going all through. I think it was a great conversation, and audience are sure to get great inputs and everything out there. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
your time.
Thank you, Sonam, for having me on this fantastic topic, and I look forward to getting back with you.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.